No woman lasted a night with him, they whispered. And as Tanith stood among the offerings brought before the Alpha King, she understood why each woman trembled. 17 brides, 17 funerals. Every woman who had ever shared his bed was found cold before sunrise, their hearts stopped as if frozen from within. Yet still, they came. Desperate families, ambitious lords, women who believed their beauty or bloodlines might protect them where others had failed. Tanith was not beautiful. She was not ambitious. She had been sent because she was already broken, and her father saw no loss in offering damaged goods to a cursed king. What no one knew, what Tanith had hidden beneath layers of fabric pressed against her chest, was her own secret. The hollow mark over her heart, the curse that had emptied her of everything worth taking. Perhaps that was why, when the Alpha King's cold gaze swept the trembling line of women and stopped on her, something flickered in his winter-pale eyes. Not hunger, not cruelty, recognition. "This one," he said, and Tanith felt, for the first time in years, something stir in the hollow space where her heart should be. The great hall of Valdris had seen coronations, treaties, and celebrations that bards still sang about 3 kingdoms away. Tonight, it held a death parade. Tanith stood 5th in the line of 7 women. Each had been bathed, perfumed, and dressed in white, the color of sacrifice in the northern kingdoms, the color of burial shrouds. The woman beside her wept silently, tears cutting tracks through powder carefully applied to hide the dark circles beneath her eyes. She was perhaps 30, still beautiful, but past the prime age for a first mating. Desperation had brought her here. Desperation had brought them all. "I heard the last one screamed," someone whispered from the crowd gathered to watch. "Screamed until she couldn't anymore. They found claw marks on the door where she'd tried to escape." "Nonsense. She simply didn't wake. Peaceful as sleeping," they said. "Peaceful?" A bitter laugh. "Is that what they're calling it now?" Tanith kept her eyes forward, her hands clasped over her stomach where the fabric lay thickest, hiding the mark beneath. She had learned long ago that showing fear only invited cruelty. And she had exhausted her capacity for fear years ago, along with everything else. The doors at the far end of the hall crashed open. Every voice died, every breath held. Alpha King Theron of Valdris walked into the hall as if death itself had decided to wear a crown. He was tall, impossibly so, with shoulders broad enough to block doorways and hair the color of a raven's wing falling past his jaw. But it was his face that made women forget to breathe. Sharp cheekbones, a mouth carved for cruelty, and eyes the pale gray of winter storms, of frozen lakes, of the moment before a heart stops beating. He was beautiful the way a blade was beautiful, the way a wolf was beautiful in the instant before it tore out your throat. "Your Majesty." The herald's voice cracked. "The offerings have been prepared according to your specifications." Theron said nothing. His gaze moved down the line of trembling women, assessing, dismissing. One by one, they flinched under his attention. One woman's knees buckled entirely, and guards rushed to catch her before she collapsed. Still, the king's expression revealed nothing. No interest. No hope. Nothing but the cold resignation of a man who had watched 17 women die in his bed and expected nothing different from the 18th. His footsteps echoed against stone as he approached the line. First woman. He paused. Tanith heard the woman's breath turn ragged with terror. A moment later, he moved on. Second woman. Third. Fourth. Then his footsteps stopped directly before her. Tanith did not look up. She stared at the stone floor, at the fine leather of his boots, at the hem of his black formal coat. She felt his attention like a physical weight, pressing down on her shoulders, her chest, and the hidden mark over her hollow heart. The silence stretched until it screamed. "Look at me," he commanded. His voice was deep, cold, devoid of warmth, but there was something beneath it, something that sounded almost like exhaustion. Tanith raised her eyes. For a long moment, neither of them moved. His gray gaze searched her face with an intensity that should have terrified her. But Tanith had nothing left to lose. Her heart was already empty. Her family had already discarded her. Death would be a mercy compared to the hollow existence she'd been living. Perhaps he saw that. Perhaps he saw the absence where fear should have lived. Something shifted in his expression. Not warmth, but curiosity. And beneath that, something darker. Recognition. "What is your name?" he asked. "Tanith, Your Majesty." "Tanith," he repeated as if tasting the word. "And you're not afraid?" It wasn't a question. "No, Your Majesty." "Why?" "Because I have nothing left to take," she thought. "Because I am already dead inside. Because whatever curse claims your brides cannot touch someone who is already hollow." But she said none of this. Instead, she held his gaze and spoke a truth that surprised even herself. "Because I don't believe you want to kill them." The hall gasped. Someone dropped something metal that clattered against stone. Theron's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. Then, slowly, something that might have been the ghost of a smile crossed his face. "This one," he said. "I'll take this one." Chaos erupted behind them, but Tanith barely heard it. She was too focused on the cold that radiated from the king, too aware of how his hand trembled slightly as he reached toward her before catching himself. He didn't want to touch her. No, she realized with sudden clarity. He was afraid to touch her. The deadliest Alpha King in 3 centuries was afraid of what would happen when he did. The carriage moved through the night in silence. Tanith sat across from the king, close enough to feel the unnatural cold that emanated from him. It seeped through the velvet cushions, through her white gown, settling into her bones like winter mist. Any other woman would have shivered. Tanith welcomed it. The cold was honest. The cold made no pretenses about what awaited her. "You will be given chambers," Theron said finally, breaking the silence. His eyes remained fixed on the window, on the passing darkness. "Servants will attend to your needs. You will want for nothing. Until I die," Tanith said quietly. His jaw tightened. "Until the night is through." "And if I survive until morning?" The question hung between them. For the first time, he turned to look at her fully. In the dim lamplight of the carriage, his features seemed carved from marble, beautiful and remote. "No one survives until morning," he said. "I thought you understood what you agreed to." "I understood." "Then why?" His voice cracked slightly, the first sign of something beneath the cold exterior. "Why did you not tremble like the others? Why did you look at me as if—" He stopped, catching himself. "As if what, Your Majesty?" He turned back to the window. Several heartbeats passed before he spoke again. 17 women, he murmured. 17 women have shared my bed since this curse took hold, each one dead before dawn." His hands clenched on his knees. Some went peacefully, others fought, others begged. None survived. Tanith absorbed this in silence. She should feel horror. She should feel fear. But all she felt was a strange kinship, a recognition of a suffering that mirrored her own. "Why do you keep trying?" she asked. The question seemed to catch him off guard. "What? If you know they'll die, why keep taking brides? Why not simply remain alone?" For a long moment, he didn't answer. When he did, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because the curse grows stronger the longer I resist it. Because without a queen to anchor me, I will eventually lose myself entirely. And because—" He stopped, his throat working. "Because I am still foolish enough to hope that someday, someone will be strong enough to survive." Tanith looked at him. This man who had been painted as a monster by every kingdom in the realm. This man who terrified even his own guards. This man who radiated cold because something was slowly freezing him from within. She saw his loneliness. She recognized it because it matched her own. "I cannot promise I will survive," she said quietly, "but I can promise I will not beg. I will not scream. Whatever happens tonight, I will face it with dignity." Theron finally turned to face her. In his pale eyes she saw something that looked almost like gratitude. "That," he said quietly, "is more than any woman has ever offered me." The carriage stopped. Through the window, the castle of Valdres loomed against the moonlit sky, dark and imposing and waiting. Theron stepped out first, then turned to offer his hand. Tanith took it. His skin was ice, colder than winter, colder than stone, a cold that should have stopped her heart on contact. But instead, something strange happened. Where their hands met, warmth bloomed. Theron's breath caught. His grip tightened involuntarily, his eyes widening as he stared at their joined hands. "That's impossible," he whispered. The contract signing took place at dawn, a bitter irony that was not lost on Tanith. Dawn. The hour she was not expected to see. The king's council chamber was vast, lined with tapestries depicting Valdres's bloody history. 7 advisors sat along the great table, each one watching Tanith with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed disgust. At the far end of the table sat her father, Lord Corin of House Vale. He did not look at her, had not looked at her since the carriage ride to the palace when he'd explained, in cold detail, why she was being offered. "You're already damaged goods," he'd said. "At least this way your death will bring the family some advantage." Beside him sat her sister, Senna. Beautiful Senna, with her golden hair and unmarked skin and heart full of everything Tanith's lacked. She was staring at Tanith now, her expression unreadable. "The terms are straightforward," the eldest advisor announced, reading from the contract. "Lady Tanith of House Vale agrees to serve as bride to His Majesty King Theron for a period of 1 night. If she survives until dawn, the marriage will be formalized and she will be crowned queen. If she does not survive..." The advisor hesitated. "The usual arrangements will be made." The usual arrangements? Such clean words for a funeral. "Are these terms agreeable to you, Lady Tanith?" the advisor asked. Before she could answer, her father spoke. "I must register a concern," Lord Corin said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "My daughter is not well. She carries a mark of illness. I would hate for His Majesty to blame House Vale if she proves too weak to survive." Tanith felt the blood drain from her face. He was trying to expose her, to reveal the hollow mark that she had hidden since childhood. "What mark?" Theron's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Lord Corin smiled thinly. "Perhaps my daughter should show you herself, before you commit to this arrangement." Every eye turned to Tanith. Her heart, hollow though it was, still managed to pound against her ribs. "The lady's medical history is not relevant to this contract," Theron said coldly. "She agreed to the terms. That is sufficient." "But Your Majesty..." "I said it is sufficient." Theron's voice dropped to a deadly register. "Or do you question my judgment, Lord Corin?" The temperature in the room plummeted. Frost began to creep along the edges of the windows. Several advisors shrank back in their seats. Lord Corin's smile faltered. "Of course not, Your Majesty." "Good." Theron turned to Tanith, and for just a moment his expression softened. "Sign the contract." Tanith approached the table on legs that threatened to shake. She took the offered quill, dipped it in ink, and signed her name. Theron signed after her, his signature sharp and angular. "It's done," the advisor announced. "May the gods have mercy." No one said on whom. The council filed out, her father among them. He still did not look at her, but Senna lingered, her eyes following Tanith as the guards prepared to escort her to her chambers. "Sister," Senna called. Tanith paused. She hadn't heard that word from Senna's lips in years. Senna approached slowly, her expression torn between something that looked almost like guilt and something harder to name. "I need to speak with you," Senna said quietly. "Alone." The guards looked to Theron, who gave a slight nod. 5 minutes. They found a small alcove off the main corridor. Senna kept glancing around, as if afraid of being overheard. "You need to know something," Senna said finally, "about the king, about his curse." Tanith waited. "The women don't just die." Senna's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "They die because he drains them. Not intentionally, but his curse feeds on warmth, on life force, on—" She hesitated. "On love." "I don't understand." "The more a woman cares for him, the faster she dies." Senna gripped Tanith's arm. "The ones who lasted longest were the ones who felt nothing for him. The ones who died fastest." Her voice broke. "They were the ones who started to fall for him." Tanith absorbed this. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I saw the way he looked at you." Senna's eyes glistened with something that might have been tears. "And I saw the way you looked at him. There was recognition there, connection. If you let yourself feel anything for him, you won't last the night." "I don't feel—" Tanith said flatly. "Not anymore." "Everyone feels something eventually." Senna released her arm. "Father sent you here to die, but She swallowed hard. "I don't want that. Despite everything between us, I don't want you dead." Tanith studied her sister's face, searching for the catch, the cruelty, finding none. "Then wish me luck," Tanith said quietly. "Because tonight, I either survive the unsurvivable, or I finally get the peace I've been denied." She turned and walked toward the waiting guards. Behind her, Senna's voice followed, soft and heavy with dread. "There is no luck with him, sister. There is only the cold. And the cold always wins." The ceremony took place at twilight, the dying light casting long shadows through the cathedral's stained glass windows. Tanith walked alone down the aisle. No father to give her away. No family standing in witness except Senna, who sat rigidly in the back row, her face pale as parchment. The pews were filled with nobles who had come not to celebrate, but to observe, to witness another tragedy, to place bets, perhaps, on how many hours she would last. Tanith heard their whispers like wind through dead leaves. "She's plain, not even beautiful enough for a proper funeral. The last one was stunning, lasted 4 hours. This one looks half dead already. Perhaps that's the strategy." Tanith kept her eyes forward, fixed on the altar where Theron waited. He wore black, as always, but today there was something different in his bearing, a tension in his shoulders, a tightness around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and desperate prayers. He didn't want to do this, she realized. He was as much a prisoner of this ceremony as she was. The priest began the rites, his voice trembling slightly. He rushed through the words as if speed might spare him from the weight of what he was sanctifying. "Do you, Theron, Alpha King of Valdris, take this woman as your bride, your queen, your mate?" "I do." His voice was steady, but his hands were not. Tanith saw them tremble at his sides. "And do you, Tanith of House Vale, take this man as your husband, your king, your mate?" Tanith looked at Theron, at the curse made flesh, at the man who had killed 17 women simply by loving them. "I do." The priest swallowed hard. "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you." "Wait." Theron's voice cut through the cathedral like ice cracking. Everyone froze. The priest's mouth hung open mid-word. The nobles leaned forward in their seats, hungry for drama. Theron reached into his coat and withdrew something small, metallic, glinting in the candlelight. A ring, but not an ordinary one. This ring was forged from silver so pale it looked almost white, set with a stone that seemed to contain captured frost. This was my mother's, he said quietly, his eyes never leaving Tanith's face. She was the last woman to survive a full year as my father's queen before the curse claimed her. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The king never spoke of his mother. Never. She made me promise, Theron continued, that I would only give this ring to someone who looked at me without fear. Someone who saw the man beneath the monster. He took Tanith's hand. The cold of his touch was still shocking, still bone deep. But beneath it, she felt that strange warmth again, blooming where their skin met. You are the first, he said softly, for her ears alone. The first to look at me as if I were still human. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, and the moment it settled against her skin, the frost within the stone began to swirl, alive. Now, Theron said to the priest, finish it. The priest stammered through the final blessing. The nobles erupted in confused applause, and through it all, Tanith stood frozen, staring at the ring on her finger. His mother's ring, given to no other bride before her. Either it was a final kindness before her death, or something had changed. She wasn't sure which possibility frightened her more. The reception was mercifully brief. Nobles approached to offer hollow congratulations, their eyes sliding away from Tanith as if she were already a ghost. Servants moved through the crowd with wine no one drank, and food no one touched. Everyone was waiting. Waiting for night to fall. Waiting for the king to claim his bride. Waiting for another body to be carried out before dawn. When the clock struck 9, Theron appeared at her side. It's time, he said. Tanith set down her untouched glass. I know. He offered his arm. She took it, feeling the cold seep through her sleeve, into her veins, toward the hollow mark beneath her breast. They walked in silence through torch-lit corridors, up spiraling stairs toward the king's chambers. With each step, the temperature dropped. With each step, Tanith felt the weight of 17 ghosts pressing against her back. At the door to his chambers, Theron stopped. You can still refuse, he said quietly. I can have you escorted to a separate wing. You would live, at least until morning. We could... No. Tanith met his eyes. I made a vow. I intend to keep it. Something flickered across his face. Pain, perhaps. Or hope. Or both. He pushed open the door. The chamber beyond was vast and cold, dominated by a massive bed draped in white linens. Frost crept along the window frames despite the fire roaring in the hearth. The very air seemed to crystallize as they stepped inside. Tanith, Theron said, and his voice broke on her name. I'm sorry. For whatever comes next, I'm sorry. She turned to face him. Don't apologize, she said. Not yet. The night isn't over. She reached up and, for the first time, touched his face. The cold was staggering. Her fingers should have frozen on contact, but instead, that impossible warmth bloomed again, spreading from her palm into his skin. Theron's breath caught. His eyes widened, and for one impossible moment Tanith could have sworn she saw color return to his pale cheeks. The fire had burned down to embers when Tanith opened her eyes. Gray light seeped through the frosted windows. Morning light. Dawn. She was alive. For a long moment she simply lay there, trying to process this impossible fact. The sheets beneath her were cold, stiff with frost at the edges. Her breath misted in the air. But her heart still beat, slow and steady in her hollow chest. She had survived. Beside her, Theron lay motionless. His dark hair spread across the pillow like spilled ink. His features, so sharp and forbidding when awake, had softened in sleep. He looked younger, vulnerable, almost peaceful. His arm was wrapped around her waist. Even in sleep he held her as if afraid she might disappear. Tanith studied his face, remembering the night before. Remembering everything. It had begun with terror, despite her brave words. When Theron had kissed her for the first time, his lips cold as winter stone, she had felt the curse immediately. A pulling sensation deep in her chest, as if something was trying to draw the life from her body. But then something strange had happened. The pulling had stopped. Not because the curse relented, but because it found nothing to take. It reached for her warmth and found only the hollow mark, the emptiness where her heart should be. The curse had nothing to feed on. Tanith remembered Theron's confusion when she hadn't weakened, hadn't gasped, hadn't begun the slow descent into cold death. She remembered his hands trembling as he touched her, waiting for the signs that had claimed every woman before. They never came. Instead, the opposite had happened. Where she touched him, warmth spread. Where she kissed him, the ice retreated. It was as if her hollowness was not a void at all, but a vessel waiting to be filled. And something in Theron had begun to fill it. The consummation itself had been unlike anything Tanith expected. Theron moved with desperate gentleness, as if she were something precious and breakable. His cold hands mapped her body with reverent care, learning every curve, every response. When he found the hollow mark over her heart, he had frozen. "What is this?" he had whispered in the darkness. "A curse," Tanith had replied. "From childhood, it emptied me, made me feel nothing, want nothing, love nothing." She had expected disgust, rejection. Instead, Theron had pressed his lips to the mark, and Tanith had gasped at the sensation, cold and heat mingling in ways that should have been impossible. "Then we are matched," he had murmured against her skin. "I am cursed to destroy any warmth I touch. You are cursed to feel none." His breath ghosted over the mark. "Perhaps together, we cancel each other out." What followed was not the violent claiming she had feared. It was slow, careful, two broken people learning each other in the darkness. His cold seeped into her, but it did not kill. Her emptiness absorbed him, but it did not drain. They lay at the center of a frozen bed, wrapped in each other, and for the first time in years, Tanith felt something. Not love, not yet, but the possibility of it. A door creaking open in a heart she thought had been sealed forever. Now, watching Theron sleep, she wondered what this meant. If the curse could not kill her, what happened next? Would he keep her? Discard her? Was she now truly his queen, or merely an anomaly to be studied? Theron stirred. His eyes opened slowly, pale gray catching the dawn light. Then he saw her alive, breathing, watching him. He sat up so fast the bed frame groaned. "Tanith!" His voice cracked. His hands found her face, cupping it as if she might shatter. "You're alive. You're—" He couldn't finish. His whole body shook. "I survived," she said softly. "How?" The word tore from him. "No one survives. No one ever—" "I don't know." She covered his hands with her own. "But I'm here. I'm still here." Something broke in Theron's expression. The mask he wore, the cold king's face that kept the world at bay, crumbled. And beneath it, she saw a man who had been alone for so long he had forgotten what hope felt like. He pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her like iron bands. She felt his breath ragged against her hair, felt his heart pounding beneath her ear, too fast, too desperate. "I was so certain," he whispered. "When I woke, I didn't want to look. I was so certain you would be cold beside me, like all the others." "I'm warm," Tanith said. "Or at least, as warm as I ever am." A sound escaped him. It might have been a laugh. It might have been a sob. "How are you warm? How is this possible?" Tanith pulled back to look at him. His eyes were wet. The Alpha King, the monster of Valdris, the man who had frozen 17 brides in his bed, had tears on his cheeks. "Maybe because I had nothing for the curse to take," she said slowly. "Maybe because we're both already broken. Or maybe—" She hesitated. Maybe what? Maybe the curse only kills women who fall in love with you. She touched his face, feeling the cold beneath her fingertips. And I don't know how to love, so I'm safe. The words hung between them. Theron's expression flickered, a complicated dance of relief and something that looked almost like grief. Then stay safe, he said quietly. Promise me, whatever you do, don't fall in love with me. Tanith held his gaze. She thought of her hollow heart, her empty soul, the mark that had made her less than human for so many years. I promise, she said. Neither of them noticed how the frost on the windows had begun to melt. The news spread through Valdris like wildfire. The king's 18th bride had survived the night. Servants whispered in corridors. Nobles demanded audiences. The kingdom itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if this was a miracle or merely a delayed tragedy. Tanith found herself the subject of intense scrutiny. Every meal was attended by healers checking her vital signs. Every sleep was monitored by guards stationed outside her door, listening for signs of distress. Every morning she woke, the castle exhaled in collective relief. 1 week passed. Then 2. Then a month. And Tanith remained alive. She had expected Theron to keep his distance after that first night. The contract was fulfilled. She had proven herself immune to his curse. But that didn't mean he wanted a wife, a companion, a queen. Instead, he came to her chambers every evening. The first time, he had stood awkwardly in her doorway, his hands clasped behind his back. I wanted to inquire about your health, he had said stiffly. Tanith had invited him inside. They had talked for hours, about nothing important at first, then about everything. His childhood in a cold castle with parents who feared touching him. Her childhood in a household that saw her hollowness as shame. The loneliness they both carried like second skins. The second evening, he brought her a book from his private library. You mentioned you liked histories, he said, not meeting her eyes. The third evening, he stayed for dinner. By the second week, their evenings together had become ritual. They would dine, discuss kingdom affairs, read by the fire. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they simply existed in the same space, two lonely people who had forgotten what company felt like. And every night, without fail, Theron would eventually reach for her. The physical aspect of their relationship had evolved. What began as careful experimentation became genuine intimacy. Tanith learned that her touch actually warmed him, that the frost retreated where her skin met his. Theron learned that his cold did not drain her, but filled her instead, giving sensation to a woman who had felt nothing for years. They were a paradox, a cure for each other's curse. I feel things when I'm with you, Tanith admitted one night, lying in his arms, warmth, want, contentment. She paused. I haven't felt anything in so long, I forgot what it was like. Theron's hand stilled on her back. Is that good? I think so. She tilted her head to look at him, though my sister's warning keeps echoing in my mind. Senna warned you about me? She said the curse feeds on love, that women who cared for you died faster. Theron was quiet for a long moment. She's not wrong. The women who felt nothing lasted longest, a full night sometimes. The ones who looked at me with tenderness. His voice caught. They were gone within hours. Then I should stay cold, Tanith said. Stay hollow. Keep you at a distance. Yes. His arm tightened around her. That would be the wise thing. Neither of them moved apart. 3 months into their marriage, Tanith realized she was pregnant. The healer confirmed it with trembling hands. Your Majesty, she said, bowing low. You are with child. The king's heir grows within you. Tanith placed her hand over her stomach. An heir, a child conceived in ice and warmth, born of 2 curses that should have destroyed each other. She told Theron that evening, after dinner, when the fire had burned low and the frost crept along the windows as it always did when he was near. "I'm carrying your child," she said simply. Theron went completely still. The glass in his hand frosted over and cracked. "What?" The word was barely a whisper. The healer confirmed it today. Tanith watched his face carefully, searching for his reaction. "I understand if this complicates things. If you never expected—" He crossed the room in 3 strides and fell to his knees before her. His cold hands found her stomach, pressing gently against the fabric. His head bowed until his forehead rested against her belly. "A child," he breathed. "Our child." Tanith's throat tightened at the wonder in his voice. "You're pleased?" He looked up at her, and his eyes were bright with something she had never seen before. Joy. Pure, unguarded joy. "Pleased?" He laughed, the sound rusty from disuse. "Tanith, I never believed I would have an heir. I never believed any woman would survive long enough to conceive. I had accepted that my line would end with me, that the curse would die when I died." His hands trembled against her. "You've given me something I never dared hope for." Something warm bloomed in Tanith's chest, not the hollow emptiness she had grown accustomed to. Something fuller, something dangerous. She was falling for him, despite every warning, every promise, every logical reason to keep her heart cold. "Theron," she whispered, "I need to tell you something." He rose, cupping her face in his frozen hands. "Anything." "I'm beginning to feel things. Real things. Not just sensation, but—" She struggled to find words for emotions she barely recognized. "Warmth. Affection. Need. When you're not with me, I ache. When you touch me, I feel whole." Her voice dropped. "I think I'm falling in love with you." The joy drained from Theron's face. His hands dropped from her cheeks. "No." The word came out strangled. "No, Tanith, you can't. I know it's dangerous. I know what Senna said. But I can't help." "You don't understand." He stepped back, his expression twisting with anguish. "The curse doesn't just kill women who love me. It feeds on that love, grows stronger with it." His breath came in ragged gasps. "And when it has fed enough, it doesn't just kill them. It kills me too." Tanith froze. "What?" "Why do you think I've never let anyone close? Why I was so terrified of caring for any of my brides?" Theron's voice cracked. "Because the curse is designed to ensure I never find happiness. The moment I truly love someone, the moment that love is mutual, it will destroy us both." "But you've been different with me," Tanith said desperately. "The warmth, the connection. You said yourself we cancel each other out." "We did, while neither of us felt anything." Theron's face was ashen. "But if you love me, if I love you back—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Tanith watched in horror as frost began spreading from his chest, visible even through his shirt. His skin went pale, then paler still. His eyes widened with sudden pain. "No," she whispered. "No, not yet. I just told you. It can't happen this fast." Theron clutched his chest, his legs buckling. "The curse has been waiting," he gasped. "Building. Every night we spent together, every touch, every moment of happiness. It was all feeding the curse, preparing for this moment." "Then I take it back," Tanith said, falling to her knees beside him. "I don't love you. I feel nothing. I'm still hollow, I'm still—" "You can't take back the truth." Theron's hand found hers, grip weakening. "And I can't take back what I've been feeling for months. I love you, Tanith. I've loved you since the moment you looked at me without fear." The frost spread faster, his breath misted white in the suddenly frigid air. "Doe! No!" Tanith screamed. "Help! Someone help! The king is dying!" Guards burst through the door, but they stopped short at the sight before them. The king, covered in frost, collapsed in his new queen's arms. the curse, finally claiming its price. "There's no cure," Theron whispered, his eyes already dimming. "I'm sorry, my love. I'm so sorry." The frost reached his face, his eyes fluttered closed, and Tanith screamed. The court physician shook his head slowly, his face grave. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty. There is nothing medical science can do. The king's condition is magical in nature. He requires a practitioner of the old arts." Tanith stood over Theron's frozen form, her hand pressed against his chest where a thin layer of frost now covered his heart. 3 days had passed since his collapse, 3 days of watching the ice spread, watching his breath grow shallower, watching the man she loved slip away. "Then find me a practitioner," she commanded. "Find me anyone who can help." "Magic is forbidden in Valdris, Your Majesty, has been for generations. Any witch powerful enough to challenge this curse would have fled the kingdom long ago." Tanith's jaw tightened. "Then I will find one myself." She rode out that same afternoon, against the protests of the council, against the warnings of the guards. The only person who did not try to stop her was Senna, who appeared at the stables as Tanith mounted her horse. "There's a woman," Senna said quietly. "In the northern woods, beyond the border. They call her the Hollow Witch. She deals in curses and their unmaking." Tanith stared at her sister. "How do you know this?" "Because Father consulted her once, years ago." Senna's expression was unreadable. "About you." Before Tanith could demand more, Senna pressed a folded map into her hands. "Go, save your king. And when you return—" Senna hesitated. "There are things you need to know. Things Father has hidden from both of us." Tanith found the witch's cottage 3 days later, deep in a forest where the trees grew so thick they blocked out the sun. The woman who answered her knock was ancient, her face a landscape of wrinkles, her eyes milky with age. But her voice was sharp as a blade. "The Queen of Valdris. I wondered when you would come. You know who I am? I know what you carry." The witch's blind eyes fixed on Tanith's chest, on the hollow mark hidden beneath her clothes. "I put it there, after all." Tanith's blood ran cold. "What?" "Come inside, child. We have much to discuss." The cottage was cluttered with herbs, bones, and artifacts Tanith couldn't identify. The witch settled into a chair by the fire and gestured for Tanith to sit. "Your father came to me when you were 7 years old," the witch began. "You had begun showing signs of magic, strong magic, fire and warmth and life itself bending to your will." Tanith shook her head. "That's impossible. I've never had magic. The hollow mark drained everything from me." "Because that's what I designed it to do." The witch smiled grimly. "Your father feared what you were becoming, feared the power growing inside you. So he paid me to create a seal, a mark that would contain your magic, lock it away where it could never emerge." "But why?" Tanith's voice cracked. "Why would he do that?" "Because your magic came from your mother, and your mother—" The witch paused. "Your mother was not from House Vale. She was from an ancient line of fire witches, healers who could cure any curse, mend any wound, and bring warmth to the coldest heart." Her blind eyes gleamed. "Your father married her for political advantage, then discovered what she truly was. He had her killed for it. And when you began showing the same gifts, he had you seal them away." Tanith felt sick. "Rather than let anyone know his daughter carried witch blood." "The hollow mark doesn't just contain your power," the witch continued. "It creates a void, an absence where your magic should be. That's why the king's curse couldn't kill you. There was nothing for it to feed on. But there's another side to it." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "If the seal is broken, if your true power emerges, you could do more than survive his curse. You could cure it. Fire against ice, warmth against cold, life against death." Hope flared in Tanith's chest. "Then break the seal, now. Tell me how." "Only the one who commissioned the seal can break it." The witch shook her head. Your father holds the key. A small token, imbued with my magic. Without it, the seal cannot be undone. Tanith rose, her hands trembling with rage and desperate hope. Then I'll get the key. Be warned, child. The witch's voice followed her to the door. Your father will not give it willingly. He has spent your entire life ensuring your power stayed buried. He would rather see you dead than unleashed. Tanith paused at the threshold. Then he'll learn what happens when he stands between me and the man I love. She rode back to Valdris with murder in her heart. When she reached the castle, Theron was worse. The frost had spread to his face, his lips blue, his skin translucent. The physicians had given up. The servants spoke in hushed tones of funeral arrangements. Tanith knelt beside his frozen form, pressing her lips to his icy forehead. Hold on, she whispered. Just a little longer. I know how to save you. His eyes fluttered open, just barely. Gray and fading, but still there. Tanith. Her name emerged as a breath of frost. You came back. Of course I came back. Tears froze on her cheeks as they fell. I love you. I'm not letting you die. The curse can be broken. I have fire magic, Theron. Real magic, sealed inside me since childhood. If I can unlock it, I can cure you. His frozen hand twitched toward her. Fire magic? My mother was a witch. My father had her killed for it, then sealed my powers away. Tanith gripped his hand. He's been lying to me my entire life, and now I'm going to make him pay. Dangerous, Theron managed. Your father is a murderer and a coward. Tanith's voice hardened. And he's going to give me what I need, or I'll take it from him. She pressed one last kiss to his frozen lips. Stay alive. That's an order from your queen. Something that might have been a smile flickered across his face. Then his eyes closed, and the frost crept further. The Vale estate loomed against the evening sky, its windows glowing with warm light that seemed obscene given the cold darkness in Tanith's heart. She did not knock. The doors burst open at her command, guards scrambling aside as the Queen of Valdris strode into the great hall where her father sat at dinner. Lord Corvin looked up, his fork frozen halfway to his mouth. Beside him, Senna rose from her chair, her face pale but determined. Tanith. Her father's voice dripped with contempt. I heard the king was dying. Come to beg for help? I've come for the key. Tanith stopped before his table, her voice steady despite the fury burning in her chest. The token the Hollow Witch gave you, the one that controls my seal. Lord Corvin's eyes widened briefly before his expression smoothed into practiced calm. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Tanith slammed her hands on the table. I know everything about Mother, about the seal, about the magic you stole from me to hide your shame. Senna gasped. Father, what is she talking about? Nothing. Lord Corvin rose, his chair scraping against stone. Your sister has always been prone to delusions. It's why I had her marked as hollow in the first place. Marked as hollow? Senna's voice rose. You told me she was born that way. You said it was a birth defect. A convenient lie. Tanith turned to her sister. He paid a witch to seal my magic because I inherited it from our mother. Our mother, who was a fire witch from an ancient healing line. Our mother, who he had murdered. Silence crashed over the room. Senna's face went white. Murdered? But you said Mother died of fever. You said... I said what needed to be said. Lord Corvin's mask was slipping now, his voice rising with agitation. Your mother was a witch, a filthy, cursed creature who deceived me into marriage. When I discovered what she was, I did what any reasonable man would do. You killed her. Senna's voice shook. You killed our mother because she had magic. I protected this family from scandal. Lord Corvin jabbed a finger at Tanith. And when this one started showing the same taint, I made sure it would never emerge. I did everything right. Everything. You destroyed my life. Tanith's voice was quiet now, more dangerous than any shout. You made me believe I was broken, hollow, worthless. You sent me to the Alpha King hoping I would die. Just another problem eliminated. And you should have died. Her father's composure finally shattered. Any normal woman would have. But somehow you survived, and now you've come back here making demands, threatening to expose. Father. Senna stepped between them, her face twisted with horror and grief. How could you? Mother loved you. She loved us. She was a witch. She was our mother. And Tanith is her spawn. Lord Corvin pointed at Tanith with a shaking hand. Look at her, standing there demanding I give her magic back so she can save that cursed king. She's just like her mother. Manipulative. Dangerous. She needs to be... Senna's fist connected with his jaw. Lord Corvin stumbled backward, crashing into the table. Plates and glasses shattered on the floor. Guards rushed forward, but Senna held up her hand. Stay back. Her voice carried the authority of a woman who had finally seen the truth. This man is a murderer and a traitor to his own blood. She turned to Tanith, tears streaming down her face. The key, Senna said. He keeps it in his study. A small silver token in a locked box. I can show you. Senna. Lord Corvin struggled to his feet, blood dripping from his split lip. You ungrateful... Silence. Tanith didn't look at him. Guards, hold him. He'll answer to the crown for his crimes. The guards hesitated only a moment before seizing Lord Corvin. His protests echoed through the hall as Tanith followed Senna to the study. The box was where Senna said it would be. Inside, resting on velvet, was a small silver pendant shaped like a flame. Tanith lifted it, and warmth flooded her palm. How do I use it? She asked. I don't know. Senna's voice was thick with tears. But if it sealed your magic, perhaps breaking it. Tanith didn't wait for her to finish. She closed her fist around the pendant and squeezed. The silver cracked, then shattered, and fire exploded through her veins. Tanith screamed as power unlike anything she'd ever known coursed through her body. Flames danced along her skin, not burning, but warming. The hollow mark on her chest pulsed, cracked, and then dissolved entirely. For the first time in her life, Tanith felt whole. Sister. Senna stared at her in awe. Your eyes. They're glowing. Tanith looked at her hands. Fire flickered between her fingers, controlled, contained, waiting for her command. The king, she breathed. I have to reach the king. She ran. The ride back to the castle was a blur. Tanith pushed her horse to its limits, fire burning inside her, desperate to reach Theron before it was too late. She burst into his chambers to find the physicians standing back, their faces grave. One of them was pulling a sheet over Theron's body. No. Tanith shoved them aside. He's not dead. He can't be. She tore the sheet away. Theron lay beneath it, his skin completely covered in frost, his chest still, his lips blue. He looked like a statue carved from ice. But Tanith could feel something. A tiny flicker of warmth, buried deep beneath the frozen shell. He was still there. Barely, but still there. Everyone out, she commanded. The physicians fled. Tanith climbed onto the bed, straddling Theron's frozen body. She pressed her hands against his chest, directly over his heart. I love you, she whispered. And I'm not letting you go. She closed her eyes and let the fire pour out of her. Heat blazed from her palms, sinking into the ice, melting it layer by layer. The frost retreated. The blue faded from his skin. Color returned, faint at first, then stronger. Tanith poured everything she had into him. Every ounce of magic, every fragment of warmth, every piece of the love she'd been afraid to feel. The curse fought back. She felt it, a dark, ancient thing, clinging to Theron's heart with frozen claws. It had fed on centuries of loneliness, on generations of frozen brides. It didn't want to let go. But Tanith's fire was older still. The magic of her mother's line, passed down through generations of healers. Magic meant to cure, to warm, and to love. She burned brighter. The curse screamed, a sound only she could hear, and then it shattered. The ice was gone. The cold was gone. Theron's chest rose in a gasping breath. His eyes flew open, gray and clear and warm. Tanith. His voice was rough, broken. What did you... She kissed him before he could finish. His lips were warm. For the first time since she'd known him, his lips were warm. The curse is broken, she whispered against his mouth. You're free. Theron pulled her close, his arms strong and alive around her. She felt his heartbeat, steady and sure, no longer slowed by ice. How? He managed. I found my fire. She pulled back to look at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. My father sealed my magic away when I was a child, but it was always there, waiting to save you. Theron touched her face with warm fingers, wonder in his eyes. You saved me, he said. You actually saved me. We saved each other. Tanith pressed her forehead to his. You gave me a reason to feel again, and I gave you a reason to live. For a long moment they simply held each other, breathing in sync and hearts beating together. Then Theron's hand moved to her stomach where their child grew. And our baby? He asked, fear flickering in his eyes. Tanith covered his hand with hers. The curse is broken completely. For you, for me, for our child, for all the generations to come. Theron closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were wet. I love you, he said. I love you so much it terrifies me. Then be terrified, Tanith smiled, because I love you too. And I'm never letting you go. 18 months later, the Queen of Valdris stood in the sunlit garden, watching her daughter take her first wobbly steps. Little Mira had her father's dark hair and her mother's amber eyes. She had also inherited her mother's fire, which she demonstrated by accidentally setting her blanket ablaze when she was upset. The nursemaids had learned to keep buckets of water nearby. She's getting faster. Theron appeared beside Tanith, sliding his arm around her waist. His skin was warm, had been warm every day since the curse broke. He still marveled at it sometimes, pressing his hands to his own cheeks as if confirming the warmth was real. She's going to be a terror, Tanith said fondly, just like her mother. I wouldn't have it any other way. Across the garden, Senna sat reading on a bench. She had moved to the castle permanently after their father's trial. Lord Corin now languished in a cell, stripped of his titles and lands, condemned to spend his remaining years paying for his crimes. Senna looked up and caught Tanith's eye, offering a small smile. Their relationship was still healing, still fragile. But they were trying. Your Majesty. A servant approached with a bow. The council is assembled for the signing. Theron nodded. We'll be there shortly. Today marked the final approval of new laws legalizing magic throughout Valdris. Witches who had hidden for generations would finally be free to practice openly. Healers, seers, elementals, all would be welcomed, rather than hunted. You're changing everything, Tanith said as they walked toward the castle. Your ancestors would be horrified. My ancestors created a curse that killed innocent women for centuries. Theron shrugged. I think they deserve to be horrified. Mira tottered after them, caught by a laughing nursemaid before she could stumble into a rose bush. At the castle doors, Theron paused, turning to look at his wife, his daughter, the kingdom that stretched before him in the golden afternoon light. I never thought I would have this, he said quietly. A family, a future. I had accepted that I would die alone, the last of a cursed line. And now? Now I have everything. He cupped her face in his warm hands and kissed her gently. Because of you. Because you looked at me without fear. Because you refused to let me die. Tanith smiled against his lips. Well, you were rather handsome. It seemed a waste to let you freeze. He laughed, the sound still new and wonderful to both of them. They walked into the castle together, hand in hand, two broken people who had somehow made each other whole. Behind them, little Mira squealed with delight as a butterfly landed on her nose and promptly caught fire. The nursemaid sighed and reached for the bucket. No woman lasted a night with him, they had whispered. But one woman did. One woman lasted a lifetime.